Hey, welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. I'm your host, JR. I've got a lot to talk about going on in the Big Ten. We have our Sunday night episode, and the guy who would never, ever take a job elsewhere at a lesser program, even if sanctions were impending, Zach Guggenheim. I always said something else. I always said one of my other friends' last names. I was like, nope, that wouldn't be right. So, Zach Guggenheim with us once again. Zach, would you ever leave the Big Ten Huddle for a lesser podcast, as one Santa Ono has done from Michigan?
Wow,
Not a pod.
shots
He didn't leave
fired.
for a podcast. He left for a different
Shots
school. Sorry.
fired. I mean, if I ever left for any other podcast, it'd be taking a step down. So I haven't done that yet, though.
Yeah, college game day comes a call, and you're like, nope, hang up the phone.
Yeah, no. That lesser program.
There
Lesser
we go.
program.
Philip's right. Did Zach take a job at Kent State? That coaching position is open, Zach. We talked about that.
There's a reason why it's still open.
Well, that's true. That's true. What do you think about the Santa Ono stuff? We're not going to make a full segment out of it, but everybody wants to connect it to the cheating and say, oh, he's getting out of there and all this stuff. I went a little bit deeper. I think I have a different opinion on it, as I'm sure you do. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't looked too deeply into it yet. I think Michigan fans aren't going to like me saying this. Where there is smoke, there is fire.
Ooh.
So I don't know what it's for, but I'm just saying there's a lot of smoke coming from Michigan right now with show causes, with Santa Ono possibly taking the floor. It's Florida, right? That's who he's.
Yeah. The show causes were different though. Those were
Yes,
the recruiting things.
those were different. But I'm just
But
saying.
still, it's not a good thing to have your program mixing up what are these penalties for with this thing versus that thing.
Right.
That might not be a good thing for your
Yeah.
program.
I knew the show causes weren't for I was gonna say Spygate, and I'm
The
like, no,
stallion
that's
stuff.
the stallion stuff. But it just feels like things are progressing in terms of like people moving on and penalties. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what the NCAA could do, but I don't. If I'm a Michigan fan and I'm seeing, I'm getting nervous at this point. If I'm a Michigan fan, I'll just put it that way.
Yeah. I don't know. I would have been nervous before if I was a Michigan fan, just because you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, we've shared our opinion on here. We don't think it's going to be anything more than, vacating the national championship at the most. And if they do that, like, okay, you still won it. Like,
Yeah.
like we've had Buckeye fans arguing with us in the chat, like, no, it does mean something. And it's like, really? You still saw it happen.
Yeah.
They still have all the pictures. They still have I don't know. Like, as a Buckeye fan myself, it doesn't make me feel any better. And I don't know why it would any other Ohio. It's like the NCAA stinks. They don't act quick enough. They don't do anything.
Yeah. Yeah. The one thing that, and I'll just say this, because the NCAA, they stink. I'll be honest. I don't want to see, I want to see if there was clearly violations, something should be done, but also it should have been done 3 years ago or 2 years ago. The reason why I would be nervous as a Michigan fan is because the NCAA stinks. They could do something that would torpedo the program in a way that isn't fair to the current players.
You heard it here first. Zach said it. Death penalty for the Michigan
Wolverines. I'm just saying, if there's smoke, the NCAA is not to be trusted. That's all I'm gonna say.
That's accurate. That's accurate. Philip has a great question. What stinks worse, the NCAA or a pack of skunks? I don't know, Philip. Both terrible. Both terrible.
I think I know.
What?
It's the NCAA.
Okay, all right.
Zach is very confident in that. Terribly.
Well, don't worry, Michigan fans. You are going to like Zach more later in the episode than you like me, because we have our Big Ten power rankings as the final subject of this episode. We'll have fun going back and forth about that. We also have a quote from Paul Finebomb, who he gave a little bit of credit to the Big Ten, Zach. I think this is, a national holiday at this point that Paul Feinbaum gave credit to the Big Ten. So we're going to talk about that in our the SEC sucks segment, and we'll be sure to talk about the SEC too. Don't you worry. And USC, are they for real? Got a lot of momentum right now on the
Mm,
recruiting track. Just got
mm.
added another young transfer that's going to be good for them in the future moving forward. I feel like so they've got a lot of momentum. I made a post about Chad Bowden on X the other day, and
Oh.
was not making people happy. People were not happy with the USC affirmation. USC fans do not, or I shouldn't say USC. Other fans do not like USC being good. That's what I found out.
Mm.
It's not a good idea apparently. And here in just a second we'll talk about Dillon Tatum. Let's see who's in the chat first, and then we'll get going. Now we got Zach says Pacers with a W, very good. I unfortunately canceled my YouTube TV, so I'm not able to watch the games, but I'm very happy for the Pacers as somebody who is in Indiana right now.
Hmm.
Shepherd Duck says losing recruits to USC is pretty bad. Not gonna lie. I mean, they got like nearly 30 guys in their class at this point, so it feels like
Yeah.
just about everybody has
I
lost a recruit to USC at this
I
point.
would say I don't know if that's a bad thing because USC has the number one recruiting class right now.
Yeah, yeah. It's a weird situation. We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
He says I don't know if it's worse than the NCAA though. I think the NCAA is just about the worst thing in college athletics right now, in my opinion. So
Yeah.
I'm right there with you, Shepard.
Go figure. The governing body for college athletics is the worst thing going for college athletics.
Yeah, pretty much.
Whoops.
Doug and Angie says hello. Boilermakers getting a lot of transfers. They are. They are. We'll talk about it.
Hmm.
Full on. I have Purdue last in my power rankings, and it's not because I think Purdue is going to be awful. I just don't know what to do with them. Right? I
Hmm.
mean, but you know who was second last in the power rankings last year, Zach?
Was it Northwestern or
Indiana.
Maryland? Indiana. Oh.
Yeah, so
So
just
what
because they're
happened
last in the power
there?
rankings doesn't mean they can't do something. All right, let's see who else we got. Zach is saying Cal transfer Jonathan Brady to IU. Yes, not going to talk about that tonight, but that was a good get for IU. Let's see. Oh, so many good comments. I don't know which one. Um, Brenton says, "Did you all talk USC trying to poach Owings?" We did not. Did you have any thoughts on that? Tried to go after the Indiana strength and conditioning coach. They extended him. Indiana extended him instead. I think that's a huge thing for Indiana personally. I think it says a lot about the program with everybody losing recruits and stuff like that to USC. You got Indiana just holding on to their coordinators, holding on to their strength and conditioning. Not just now, but through the offseason last year too. I mean, what do you think, Zach?
I mean, I think that's a big deal for several reasons. One, USC is trying to poach your strength and conditioning coach, and they couldn't.
Like
Like
one of the best
USC's,
general managers in the nation. Like
yeah,
it's not like they're just going after anybody, right?
right. And so, like, you have a blue blood coming after your guy, and he's saying no. Like,
Yeah.
that's again, I think, people, I think of me as an Indiana hater, but like these are the things that prove to me and prove to the rest of the watching world that Indiana is upping its game. And
Yeah.
so I think it's a big deal.
Yeah. They're putting their money where their mouth is, and they're right there. It's huge for Indiana. So Doreen is here. Good evening, Big Ten family. Good evening, Doreen. Thank you
Thank
for being here. We much
thanks for being
appreciate you.
thanks for being
And
here,
yes,
Doreen.
yes, your Big Ten family here. A lot of Indiana fans, Illinois fans, Purdue fans. Yeah, we got all the Big Ten here. So, thanks for being here. All right, Zach, we ready to start this thing? We're like 10 minutes in, and we haven't even started yet. So, we ready to do this thing?
Let's do it.
All right. Michigan State transfer Dillon Tatum transfers to Northwestern. Zach, we had some. I don't know if you saw it in the comments. We had some chatter about our thoughts on Michigan State with them being one of our transfer portal losers that we were talking about when we talked about players leaving. And Michigan State fans did not believe Dillon Tatum was a very big loss because of his injuries. They believe he was going to be a backup this year at the cornerback position for him. even if that was the case, I still felt like he was good depth, and I still felt like he had some versatility. He's played safety, played corner at Michigan State. Moving on, so he is probably not. I don't think he's going to take a starting cornerback job at Northwestern, but I could see him possibly being the nickel there, which would be good for Northwestern. Like I said, has the versatility, the experience to go back and forth between cornerback and safety. Zach, your thoughts on Dillon Tatum to Northwestern?
It continues, and this will not bear out, at least in my power rankings. But I will say this: Northwestern, I think, is doing what lower level programs have to do, which is bolster depth. Because if you don't have good depth, you will then get weeded out throughout the season with injuries, with wear and tear, and then you will be unable to compete. And this is how Northwestern and honestly teams like Michigan State need to think. And so I will double down. Michigan State absolutely is a loser in this. Not because Tatum is this great player, but he is quality depth at minimum. And you need that to get through the rigors of the Big Ten season. So I think Northwestern, I said this a few weeks ago, and I'll continue to say it. Northwestern is making moves that makes me think that they're going to do what they did under Pat Fitzgerald, which is they'd have a 4-win season and then they'd have a 9-win season. I don't know if it'll be 9, but like I just think that coaching staff is too good for them not to rebound. And while the transfers don't wow you, it tells you that they're building in a smart way. And I think it's a big deal.
Yeah, I just think everything that Northwestern has been doing this off season, whatever you want to call it, it makes sense, right? I'm not saying that they've gone out and got the best players in the world or anything like that, but everything they're doing makes sense. The Preston Stone addition to me made sense. Like you should not have gone into next year with Jack Lausch as your quarterback. Like I liked Jack Lausch last year, what he did, and I thought that he was a good fill-in when Mike Wright obviously wasn't the guy. But at the end of the day, if you want to be a top half of the Big Ten program, Jack Lausch is not your starting quarterback. And like guys can improve, guys can get better, but unfortunately, I just don't think Jack Lausch is that guy. Good depth, good backup quarterback for you. Like he can do a lot of things, but he should not be your starting quarterback. Our friend of the program, Ali Bob and Mike, he says worried about Northwestern with Preston Stone at QB after what he did last season. I just don't have faith he's an upgrade for Northwestern. I can get on the questions a little bit about Preston Stone with you there, Mike. I do think, he had that one season where things went pretty well, and then he lost his job to Kevin Jennings at SMU. So I understand the questions. I do think he's an upgrade over Jack Lausch, unless Jack Lausch just made some kind of really big improvement. Those are my thoughts. But unless you have some kind of different opinion that you really believe in Jack Lausch there, that's kind of my thoughts. What do you think, Zach?
Yeah, I think if they are getting the Preston Stone that we saw at SMU a year ago, I actually think it is not a huge upgrade, but it's definitely an upgrade, right? And I think he gives you what I think Lausch and Wright couldn't, which is the ability to throw deep. I think he is a more accurate passer. So I think that part of the game is going to be big for them. I think Preston Stone is going to be a much more capable leader and passer for them.
Yeah, that makes sense. I got a super chat from Dave. Dave, thank you so much for the contribution. We appreciate it. He says, I think Northwestern is really going to try to be competitive in 2 years when they get that new stadium. Zach, are you going to be sad when the old stadium, the lakefront property they have, goes away?
I will say this. I don't respect it as much, but the Northwestern faithful do. And if the Northwestern faithful love this, not just this new stadium, but like if they like the lakefront stuff, I mean, who am I to criticize it? Like, and it makes sense for their fan base, right? Yeah. They're a much smaller fan base, much smaller footprint. they want to have a home field advantage. That's how you have it, by having a smaller crowd. Actually, Westlot Pirates, who is the college huddle affiliate for Northwestern, they love it.
Yeah, they're very
And
excited.
their whole thought is, for a long time, they did not have a home field advantage because other fans would come and take over their stadium. They don't want that. They want to be the home field team. And I respect that. So do I think it's weird? Yes, because they're a Big Ten program. But if they are for it, then good for them.
It just makes sense. Like, they are just making moves that make sense for them overall.
Yeah.
And it goes down to not just their roster construction with getting guys out of the portal. They did a very good job of getting offensive linemen. I felt like they didn't get anybody spectacular, but they got big dudes. I mean, cannot get over enough how big Xavier Gray is. That the dude is like 6'7", 340 pounds. Now, I question his ability to pull on the offensive line, but he's at least going to wreck the guy in front of him. You put a Abdul Carter in front of him, Abdul Carter's going to have a hard time, run defense against him because Xavier Gray's just that big. Now, I know Abdul Carter's not coming back, obviously, but I'm just using him as an example. A little bit of an undersized defensive end who was a really good pass rusher, but could have struggled in the rushing defense a little bit. So, Dave, thank you so much for the super chat there. Anything else on Northwestern before we move on, Zach?
I'm just going to keep saying it. Watch out for them. Like, I know it sounds weird because everybody is going to overlook them because the talent difference, but I really do think they're bowl eligible this year.
So before we go to the next one, I didn't know if I'd have to talk about this tonight or not. I thought maybe I was hiding it well enough. Jack on Bucks, friend of the show, the college football show. Appreciate you being here, Jack. He says, "Who hit JR on the eye? Show me that dude." Nobody hit me in the eye, Jack. If you guys can't tell, I have very red over here. I popped a blood vessel on Friday. So my eye is very red. I've been putting the eye drops in it. I will not open it and close up zoom on the camera, though. I think that'd probably be a little gross, so we might lose some viewers if I do that.
Thanks for I feel like a bad friend. I didn't even notice that.
It's okay, Zach. It's okay. You were fielding calls from other podcasts. You were too busy. It's okay. It's okay. Other podcasts are tampering with you, but it's okay.
This is our story, and this is what we're gonna stick to.
Oh no.
I drove all the way from Pennsylvania to Indiana.
Yeah, this is not what we meant when we talked about meeting for the first time, Zach. That's funny. That's funny. All right, let's get to the next one here. UCF transfer Chasen Johnson. I think it's Chasen Johnson. I apologize if that's wrong. Commits to USC. Zach, listen, we can talk about how this is a big commitment for USC, and I think it is. But overall, like, the thing I want to talk about more than anything with USC is just how on fire they are right now with everything. I made the comment on Twitter about watching out for USC. I don't know if it's going to happen this year or not. I have them right about the middle of my power rankings because I just don't know what to do with them. I think Lincoln Riley has shown he's a guy that can get a team to the playoffs, but he did that at Oklahoma. He almost did that his first year at USC. You could say he does a much better job of doing that when he has other people's players. I think that, I don't really like doing that to a coach very much, but I can see where that would come from fans talking about USC. But if you ask me, Chad Bowden, he's basically taking care of everything recruiting-wise and transfer portal-wise and bringing in the right players and the roster construction. Like, obviously, Lincoln Riley is involved in this too, but it feels like Chad Bowden has just kind of become the man to do everything for USC behind the scenes right now. And all Lincoln Riley has to do is basically coach the offense and coach in the games, and this is going to be a fine-tuned machine. So, I mean, do you feel like I feel where, like, USC, watch out for them moving forward? Or are you like, if this is the year, like, they're going to be really good, top 5 in the Big Ten this year? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so to backtrack a little bit, I think we were both on the same page that when Chad Bowden was hired and there was a lot of talk about how they feel great and how they're coming, we were like, guys, chill. You guys need to do something before we crown you. I'll just say this. They're no longer talking with their words, but with their actions. And it's starting with recruiting, with the transfer portal, obviously getting D'Anton Lynn, a defensive coordinator. I think this year is an improvement. I don't think we're talking about playoff run yet. But I think in a year or two, I think we're talking about not just playoff run, but competing with Oregon as the West Coast presence in the Big Ten.
Yeah. Yeah, I think as far as I'm concerned, like USC, it's just a matter of time before they start becoming a top 5 team in the Big Ten. I don't know if it's this year. I don't know if it's next year. But to me, it's going to start happening at some point as long as Lincoln Riley is still a competent coach, which I believe he is, and he's going to have the talent and everything there. So, friend of the show, Juck, just obviously just brought him up earlier. He says, I have SC at 5 in my Big Ten power rating. Honestly, like I can't argue with it. I watched Juck's show where he put out his top 25, which, by the way, if you guys like Juck's content, go watch his top 25. It didn't get watched by very many people, and he worked really, really hard on it. So help the guy out. I mean, when you work really hard on a podcast, you want people to watch it. But he had USC up there, and I didn't think he was going to have him up there, and he did. And I mean, I can't really argue with it. Like I said, Lincoln Riley is a coach who has brought teams to the playoffs. He's done a really good job with quarterbacks. To me, a lot of this hinges on Jada Maiava. Is just not all of it. I think sometimes we overvalue the quarterback. But if Jada Maiava can be a consistently good player that doesn't turn the ball over, this team can be really good. But if we see what we saw last year with Jada Maiava, where he turns the ball over a lot, he can move the team down the field, that's just going to be one more hindrance on him.
Yep. Yeah, I think I feel like we've gotten to a point where we have started undervaluing Lincoln Riley. Because in some respects for good reason, because I think Lincoln Riley was kind of seen as like the wonder kid, and the past 2 years he has deservedly taken a lot of hits, and his reputation has taken a lot of hits. But let's not forget, like, he still is a good coach. He still can coach quarterbacks. He can still coach offense, and he's getting everything right around him structurally. I think he does have the right defensive coordinator now. He does have the right general manager. And if Maiava can be the quarterback that he wants him to be, I mean, how many games would they have won if Miller Moss, didn't make the game, the back-breaking decision, or knew how to check at the line, or knew how to navigate the pocket? They probably beat Notre Dame if Maiava doesn't turn the ball over. And I know that's a lot of ifs, ands, or buts, but the reality is they weren't that far away from being a 9 or 10 win team a year ago.
Yeah. PSU Jim says, has USC fixed its D? The issue with Riley has always been the D. I mean, the issue with Riley and the D was mainly because of what's his name, defensive coordinator they had.
The Grinch.
Yeah, the Grinch. But yes, you are correct, PSU Jim. And even in Oklahoma, he had some of those issues as well. So, but it obviously was elevated with Alex Grinch that was there.
Elevated. Yeah. Okay.
I believe in D'Anton Lynn. I think that he got that secondary working really well last year. And speaking as somebody who went through a major defensive change, right? Like, obviously I watch a lot of Ohio State football. Jim Knowles came in and, the defense was better his first year, but it still wasn't amazing. USC's defense was better last year, but it still wasn't amazing. This is D'Anton Lynn's prove it year at this point, right? Mm-hmm. Jim Knowles proved it in his second year, and then now people are regarding Jim Knowles as the best defensive coordinator. No, this is 2 years later, but people are regarding him as the best defensive coordinator in college football, which he had the best defense in college football last year, and they just won a national championship, so I don't know if I can argue with that. However, I think if I'm going to be somebody that says Jim Knowles could make that switch after years at Oklahoma State, I think D'Anton Lynn can make that switch after years at UCLA as well. So PSU Jim, I agree with you. We got to look out for that defense, but I just trust D'Anton Lynn. Am I crazy for that, Zach?
No. They were better They were better last year. They were more sound. The problem is just that they weren't, like, they didn't have the talent.
For sure.
Yeah. Juck, thank you, man.
Yeah, huge thank to Jack. Says hit the like button, friends. Appreciate it, Jack. Yes, everybody hit the like button. You don't have to super chat $10 to hit the like button, but Jack did. I don't know if he had a misclick there. I'm just joking. No, we appreciate it, Jack. Thank you so much for the support and the contributions there. Means a lot to us.
Yeah.
And yes, hit the like button. So we're actually gonna be mentioning Jack later on. So it feels like Jack is basically like our third co-host tonight.
I'd say, should we? I don't know if I have the authority to ask this, but maybe Juck should come on our show on Tuesday to talk about top 25 if he's free.
Yeah, if he wants to.
Juck, if you're free, I've never done a show with you. You should come on.
Yeah, Juck's great. I would love to have Juck on once again. He did an awesome job on the recruiting show. If you guys didn't watch the state of Big Ten recruiting, Juck, I mean, he's always the man. He wasn't just the man then. He's always the man. So, all right. Hey, we're going to hit a commercial break really fast, and then we're going to come back. We're going to talk about what Paul Feinbaum had to say. Paul Feinbaum? We're talking about what he had to say.
Paul!
And how he's given credit to some Big Ten teams. No, the world is not freezing over. Paul Feinbaum has just given credit to Big Ten teams. Or one Big Ten team. We'll be right back. Have you ever wanted to watch all 22 film, that film the coaches watch? Well, now you can. Introducing the Coaches Film Room. Over at Minutes to Sports, former college coach Zack Smith breaks down film of the most relevant teams in college football with a bit of a Big Ten lead. It's not free, so you'll need to sign up for the Colonel tier, which is $25 a month, but I can attest to you that it is far more worth it than that. With about 4 to 8 games per week, this is worth so much more money, not to mention Zach's analysis, making you a smarter football fan. Go check it out. The links are in the description, minutestosports.com. You won't be sorry. Back here on the Big Ten Huddle, we appreciate you being here. I forgot to change out the graphic here. My bad. Oh, those are the power rankings. Whoops. Don't go back on that. Meant to unveil those later. All right, Zach, Paul Feinbaum, he gave credit to Ohio State. So, the team that just won the national championship, no surprise there. He decided to give credit to Ohio State and say that there are 2 teams in college football right now that he believes could make the college football playoffs with 9 wins, only 9 wins. And those 2 teams are Ohio State and Texas. Now, he went into this a little bit longer, but that was the big quote that everybody's kind of running with right now. And so, Zach, my question to you is Paul Feinbaum. He's giving some credit to Ohio State here. Now, it's not Indiana. It's not Penn State. It's not Oregon, right? It's not giving credit to any other of these Big Ten programs, but it's a start, right? It's one of those situations where, somebody is just kind of, easing their way into supporting something, and you're like, yeah, it just a little bit, ease in a little bit more. It's what Paul Feinbaum is doing. And watching 2 or 3 years, he's going to be a full-on Big Ten homer with the rest of us. Probably
not if he works for ESPN, he won't.
Well, that's true. But Zach, I'm curious your thoughts. Is Paul Feinbaum already setting the stage for people to begin including teams with 9 wins into the college football playoffs if more SEC teams have only 9 wins? Again, do you think this is a tactic by Paul Feinbaum to get the Alabamas, the Ole Misses, and all of them into the playoffs this year if they have 9 wins?
I think the fact that he's saying Texas has a shot is just stupid.
With 9 wins?
Yeah. So let's look at Texas' schedule for a minute.
Okay.
Yes, they do go on the road to play Ohio State. Then they play San Jose State, the powerhouse that they are. Okay. Then they play UTEP, and then Sam Houston State. Murderer's Row right there, people. My gosh.
The issue here, Zach, is that you are not giving credit for is Sam Houston State and UTEP are both in the South, which makes them better group of 5 teams than other group of 5. They're basically the Big 12 in the ACC.
Yeah. Okay, sure. So, and then you have Florida, which will be like, Florida might be good with DJ Lagway. Then they get Oklahoma, they're probably going to be a little better this year.
Everybody's got Florida and Oklahoma ranked, Zach.
Yeah, and they might be. So that's fair. They play Kentucky. They stink. They play Mississippi State. They stink. They play Vanderbilt. They're average, below average.
Better than stink.
Yeah, they're better than stink. And then they finish with Georgia, Arkansas, and Texas A&M, who Georgia obviously will be good. Texas A&M will be good. And then Arkansas, Here's my issue. Texas would have to lose, like the 3 games that they lose, they would have to lose to bad teams in order to be propped up by good wins. And I'm not
No,
even sure that works.
what if they lose to at Ohio State, at Florida, and at Georgia, and Florida just so happens to be top 15 team? What if Florida ends up being a top 15 team, 8 wins this season? You don't think
Yeah.
that gets them in?
No. Because who's their best win at that point?
Oklahoma.
Yeah, no.
Well, but Oklahoma's going to be ranked. If Oklahoma has 7 wins, they're going to be on the verge of being ranked.
So their best win would be like 20, be like the 24th ranked team in the country.
But it's an SEC team, Zach.
Well, and that's the
You're not including the SEC bias here.
Yeah. I just think
No, I see what you're saying though. I see what you're saying. There's no concrete win here. I do wonder, what if they beat Ohio State at the beginning of the year, but then they lose to at Florida, at Georgia, and let's say Vanderbilt, right? Or Texas A&M.
Yeah.
People are really into Mike Elko and everything, which, don't get me wrong, Mike Elko, good coach. I give him credit when he was at Duke. I'll give him credit when he was at Texas A&M. And he did better than Jimbo was doing at some point there. But as far as I'm concerned, like, I think he's actually set up better if he beats Ohio State, or if they beat Ohio State, lose to Florida, Georgia, and one of these other SEC teams like Texas A&M, because then you have the ultimate trump card of all these SEC fans saying, well, our 4th place team in the SEC beat the third place, second place team in the Big Ten, or first place, whatever,
Yeah. Sadly, that Texas-Ohio State game is going to have ramifications for the playoff.
It's gonna set up everything for the play. It's so early in the season, it's gonna set up everything.
Which is frustrating because both Texas and Ohio State lost a ton from last year's team. They're playing game 1. And so you're going to make determinations that are incredibly unfair to both of those teams, win or lose. And like Ohio State could blow the doors off of Texas and then go 9-3. And you're like, well, who is Ohio State? And you're not sure. And with Texas, like, who is Texas? But I think you're right. I think the winning team has a much better case to get in at 9-3. But I think Ohio State actually might be in the better position if they're 9-3 than Texas.
Well, and also the winning conference has a better chance of getting a 9-win team in. Like, to me, a lot of this matters who wins this game, who is going to be able to get 9-win teams into the playoffs, right? Because a lot of the SEC and the Big Ten, the Big Ten doesn't play any SEC teams in the out of conference this year, which I know I defended Matt Rule a little bit, and I stand by that defense that playing a 10th Power 4 game when people don't see that the SEC is only playing 9 with that, like I think there's some unfairness there. It doesn't mean I want them to do that. It doesn't mean that I want Nebraska to be playing Cincinnati. Sorry, Nebraska, you're catching strays here. It's just the first out of conference game I thought of. Like, it doesn't mean I want Illinois playing Duke. Like, I would rather Illinois play Vanderbilt in the out of conference. I would rather Indiana schedule, I don't know, Florida, right?
Yeah.
How good of an out of conference game would that be? Indiana and Florida. But I also get where Big Ten fans are coming, or Big Ten teams are coming from, saying, why would we schedule a 10th Power 4 game when all these guys are only playing 8 and it would just be their 9th, All right, Zach, so I have some stats here about teams making the college football playoffs with 9 wins. So I was going to actually go and get Juck's stats that he had from this past offseason, but I couldn't find them. So, Juck, if you have that video where you shared all like the 9-win teams that made the playoffs. So I went ahead and just went back myself. So I don't know if these are exactly in line with Juck's or not, but here's what I found. So in 2014, 3 teams with only 9 wins would have made the playoffs. Ole Miss, Arizona, Kansas State. 0 in 2015, and then 4 in 2016. Florida State, Colorado, USC, and Wisconsin.
Wow.
And this is all using the structure of what we have now. This is not saying like these were the top 12 teams. This is using the structure of one Big 12, one ACC, one Pac 12, and one Group of 5. Actually, no, I didn't include the group of 5 for the Pac-12 was in there because there's only 5. Um, Only 1 in 2017. That's Auburn. 4 in 2018. Penn State, Florida, LSU, Washington. 1 in 2019. Wisconsin. 2 in 2020. Iowa State and Florida. And then since COVID, Zach, only 2 teams in 2022 would have made it with 9 wins.
Hmm.
So overall, since the college football playoffs have started, if we were at just 12 teams from the beginning, you would have had 17 teams make it in those, what is that, 11 years, 10 years?
Yep.
You would have had 17 teams make it. That is an average of, what is that? What did I write down?
So 1.7.
1.5.
One
Yeah,
and
it's
a
about
half.
1.5 on average to make the college football playoffs since the playoffs started. 5 SEC teams, 5 Pac-12 teams, 3 Big 12 teams, 3 Big 10 teams, and only 1 ACC team, that being Florida State. 2.2 on average would have made the college football playoffs before COVID, who had 9 wins, and only half of a team on average makes the college football playoffs per year with 9 wins. So
Interesting.
if you look at it here, and I didn't count 2020 on either side. I just let 2020 the way it was because that was such a weird year. So I said after 2020, before 2020. So just a really weird situation here because it feels like people are acting like if you lose 3 games, there's no way you can make the college football playoffs nowadays. And they're acting like it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But if we look at the way they ranked things before COVID, happened pretty frequently. I mean, there were years where 4 teams would make it with only 9 wins. But since COVID, and this is obviously when conference realignment has started more, it's not been that way.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I don't think 3 losses is like an automatic disqualifier. And like there's certainly a pathway. When I say Texas isn't getting in, there is a pathway for Texas to get in as a 3-loss team. And a lot of it's dependent on how other teams do. Like, how do other teams do in the ACC and the Big 12? How do other teams do in the Big 10? I just think if you're going to be a 9-win team, you better have a good resume to demonstrate why you deserve to be in over a 10-win or an 11-win team. I think that's my and that was my frustration this past year when everybody was arguing for these 9-3 teams over 10-2 SMU or 11-2 SMU and 11-1 Indiana. It's like, guys, if Alabama lost to a murderer's row and had the wins that they had, absolutely Alabama has an argument to be in over those teams. The problem is they didn't. They lost to Vandy. They lost to these crap teams. It's like, okay, like
for Alabama, it was more so Oklahoma to me.
Yeah,
I could have forgave them for Vandy. It was at Vandy, wasn't it?
Yeah, but still, it's like, it was the pattern of you lost to these 500 level teams. Right. Like, I don't care if they look good on paper. Like, you kept losing to these teams. That you can't get away with that. And same thing with South Carolina. It's like, yeah, you had these good wins, but you also had these bad. Ole Miss is the biggest one. Like,
right.
3 losses and one of them's to Kentucky. Like, you can't tell me that this resume is better than 11-1 or 10-2. So you've got to, and that's my biggest issue. And that's why with Ohio State and with Texas, quite honestly, could they get in at 9-3? Sure. I wouldn't want to bank on that.
Right.
Because like Ohio State could go 9-3 and their losses could be to Texas, Penn State, and Michigan.
Right.
At that point, I'm like, as a Buckeye fan, I don't have much hope that they're getting in if their 3 biggest games they lost. Or if they
Ohio State fans didn't want them in after this last year. I mean,
that's
I
fair.
still wanted them in, even though I was mad. I still wanted them in. There were other Ohio State fans that were like, no way. Like, they don't deserve to make it.
Yeah.
They lost to 7-5, Michigan and all this stuff. Like, Ohio State fans getting their feelings a little bit. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
It just means they love college football.
That's true.
Yeah, but no, I agree with you. Like, I think at the end of the day, it's just so much of it. It's just so much of it depends on everything else in college football, right? Like if other Big Ten teams were 9-3 and vying for the playoffs, it would have made more sense for Alabama or Ole Miss or somebody else. And that's what you see these past years when 4 teams made it. Like there was only 1 year when 1 team made it. Or 2 years. There were only 2 years when 1 team made it. 2017 Auburn and 2019 Wisconsin. Those were the only 2 years when 1 team made it. You had multiple teams, 3, 4, some 2, like you had multiple teams making it the other years because those were just the years, right? It just came together that way. So,
yeah.
That's how it goes. So what teams with 9 wins could you see making the playoffs then out of the Big Ten?
Out of the Big Ten, I need to pull up the schedule.
Ohio State with their schedule.
Yeah, I think Ohio State could.
I think Indiana's schedule could, but I don't think they would get the national respect. Like 10 win Indiana makes it in this year with that schedule. It's a much harder schedule this year.
Yeah.
But I don't think they make it in with 9 wins, personally.
Yeah.
USC, if they get 9 wins, I think they could. Lincoln Riley's viewed as somebody that got teams to the playoffs before and everything. Like,
I could see it depending on how their opponents do. Not having Ohio State or Penn State on their schedule, like not having those 2 teams on their schedule hurts. But they do play. They play at Notre Dame. Right. They play at Oregon. So, like, I think that's. I'll tell you actually who I think could do it is Washington.
Maybe.
Because they play Ohio State, Michigan, and Oregon, and Illinois.
Okay, let's backtrack to USC really fast, and let's because I have USC pulled up. Let's do USC really fast, and then we'll do Washington because I really like your thought on Washington there, but I want to get to USC because I have them pulled up. So USC has at Illinois, Michigan, at Notre Dame, at Oregon. If they steal one of those road games at Illinois, at Notre Dame, at Oregon, even at Nebraska. Nebraska's going to be ranked in some people's top 25 right now. They're going to be in my top 25. I'll tell you that right now. Like, they're kind of getting some love right now. Now, it's later on in the season, so, we'll see if they're ranked at that time. But still, like, you got a pretty bad murderer's row there of at Illinois, Michigan, at Notre Dame, at Nebraska. You take 2 of those games, and your other losses at Oregon, I think USC could do it. Now they need some help. I don't think they win and get there on their own. But if there's some other 9-3 teams, I think USC could do it.
Yeah, especially if they would beat Notre Dame, that would be, I think, the big, because I think Notre Dame's going to be a top 5, top 10 team and a playoff team this year.
Well, and a lot of people are ranking them that way too.
Yeah. I could see it there. Here's where I think it's going to be difficult is I think everybody's going to, if they could pull off the upset at Illinois, those first 5 games, the first 4 games, everybody's going to be looking at SC and be thinking, yeah, they haven't played anybody.
Yeah.
And so you're talking about the whole first month of the season, everybody looking at SC as a poser.
Yeah.
And so the Illinois game is a like put up or shut up kind of thing, right?
Do you think USC gets any credit for last year? Like USC, they took down 2 SEC teams last year. Now, granted, they weren't Georgia; it was LSU and Texas A&M, but still, those were top half of the SEC fringe fight for to be playoff teams, right? Like, and one of them was in a bowl game. I get that, but still, like, I don't know. I think if USC wins 2 of that stretch there at Illinois, Michigan, at Notre Dame, at Nebraska, even if the 2 are Illinois and Nebraska, if those 2 teams are having good enough seasons, I think they're in.
Yeah. I can see a path for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's do Washington. What were you saying on Washington? I'll pull their schedule up.
Yeah, I mean, I think they have enough, I think, difficult games as well. And they get Ohio State at home. So if they beat Ohio State at home, the defending national champs, they could lose then.
if they beat both Ohio State and I got Notre Dame on the brain. If they beat both Ohio State and Illinois, or Oregon and Illinois, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, but Illinois is no pushover. Like,
Yeah.
it's not going to be easy to beat. We keep talking about like just beat Illinois. It's like no, Illinois is not
Nope.
an easy win this season by any means. That's why we're saying you have to beat them.
Yep.
But if you can steal one of those, Ohio State and Oregon, and beat Illinois too,
Yeah.
yeah, that would be huge. They have to win some road games this year.
Yeah.
They can't go undefeated at home and then lose every single game away from home. I mean, obviously
Yeah.
they can't, but
They
like they have
they've
to beat either at Michigan or well, really that's their only tough road game. I mean, at
yeah.
Wisconsin, at UCLA, at Maryland, at Washington State. Of course, they lost with Washington State last year, but
Yeah. They have to take advantage of a weak road slate.
yeah,
Like they can't lose to Washington. Well, I'll put it this way. I think actually one pathway is they lose to Washington State, but then beat Ohio State, and then maybe lose at Michigan, and then maybe Illinois, but then they win the last game against Oregon.
mm-hmm.
You like say you have wins against Ohio State and Oregon at home, but you have a weird loss at Wazoo, and it's a rivalry game.
You
I could
basically have
see.
to do what Ole Miss did last year and hope that there are other teams that are also in that scenario,
Yeah.
and whoever you beat is just amazing.
Yeah, and part of it too could be like you lose to Washington State by like 3.
Yeah,
You can't lose by 18 to a 4-8 team. Sorry, Ole Miss.
Yeah, you can't do that. All right, couple other teams really fast to throw at you. Michigan, I don't think Michigan could. That schedule's too easy this year.
Yeah, well,
like you can't lose to at Oklahoma, at Nebraska, at USC. Like even if you beat Ohio State, I don't think that gets them in. And I'm not saying those are easy road games by any means.
Yeah.
I'm just saying like those are some of their biggest games on the schedule.
Yeah. I need to retract something. I just accused Ole Miss of losing by 18 to Kentucky. That did not happen. I was thinking of Georgia losing to Ole Miss.
Oh, yeah, they lost.
That's my bad. If Oklahoma ends up being really good this year, I think that changes things for Michigan.
Maybe. But Oklahoma's got a really tough schedule too. I mean, that Oklahoma schedule is Wisconsin.
Yeah.
like Wisconsin and Oklahoma this year are the two teams that it's like, even if you're good, you're not going to be considered good because the schedule's just so tough, right?
Yeah. But I mean, you look at their schedule, like I think SC could end up being in the top 25. I think Washington could end up in the top 25. They get to play Ohio State at the end of the year, at Oklahoma, at Nebraska. Like 3 losses probably knocks them out.
Yeah.
But again, it depends on like what the rest of the slate looks like.
Yeah, I agree. Rapid fire really fast. I'm just going to name off a couple teams, and I think we know their schedules well enough. Illinois, I don't think they can do it with only 9 wins.
No.
You can't beat Ohio State, Washington. You can't lose to OhioTate, Washington, USC. A win over Indiana is not going to get you in there.
Yeah.
And a win over Washington isn't going to get you in there if you beat Indiana.
Yep. Agreed.
Or if you lose to Indiana.
Well, and especially because Illinois doesn't have the cachet like in Ohio State or Penn State.
This.
Yeah.
Like even like, and I hear some people saying like Washington might not in the chat. Like I've seen some people saying like, well, Washington's not going to be a contender this year if they win 10 games. Like, because they won the national championship 2 years ago. Like they start winning and they got cachet. Like,
yeah.
And they beat Texas 2 years ago. So, and now granted that was with Kalen DeBoer, but still like that stuff still carries over for a program. Indiana, I mean that schedule's tougher. I think if they were named Oregon, I think they would with 9 wins, but just not enough cachet for the program, right?
They would need to beat one of the big names to get consideration.
Yeah, but both their big names at Oregon, at Penn State.
Right. Well, if they could go, imagine they beat Penn State at Penn State and it's a whiteout. That would be.
But then who would? Sorry, go ahead.
That would be a big step. And they might lose to like Iowa, and that might derail it. But if they are like
Yeah.
they could get a lot of respect for a win at Penn State.
Yeah. Terry asks, "Are you seeing my comments on X?" No, we're not seeing any comments on X tonight, guys. I don't know if that's an X issue or what. But if you're watching on X and you want to be in the chat and for us to see your comments, you probably need to move over to YouTube. So, sorry, we don't control that. But Terry, thanks for moving over here. We can see your comments now. Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing for me is like there's not even like a fringe team here. Like you lose to Oregon, Penn State, and Illinois. I mean, Iowa maybe, but I mean it is at Iowa. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just don't think Indiana has a cachet, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think you're
They
right.
get in with 10. They get in with 10 wins though. You lose at Oregon, at Penn State. You win the rest of your games though. Indiana's in. What was the other team I was gonna mention? Oh, Oregon. Last one. Oregon. Then we'll move on. Does Oregon make it with only 9 wins this season?
I don't think so.
Schedule's too.
It's a
schedule's not difficult
weak
enough.
schedule.
Yeah, you only get one Penn State. You don't have Ohio State. I mean, you have Indiana on there, but it's at home.
You don't have Michigan. You don't have Illinois.
Like if Oregon blows out, and I'm not saying this will happen, Indiana fans, but if Oregon does blow out Indiana at home, that's going to be viewed the same way the blowout over Illinois was last year, right? Like, it sucks because that is a good team, but they just don't have the cachet of other teams.
Yeah, you almost need Indiana to play it close to be like they're actually better than you'd expect.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, you beat them 30-9. Is that what the score was against Illinois last year?
I think it was 38-9.
Oh, okay.
I think.
Wow, just rub it in, Zach. Jeez.
That's exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah, that is. All right. Anything else on that before we move on to our power rankings?
Mm-mm.
Okay. All right. Let's hit a commercial really fast, and then Zach and I will talk about our power rankings, and I'm sure we will make at least 10 fan bases very angry at us. But please don't stop watching the show. We would appreciate it if you continue watching. Be right back. Homefield is your go-to destination for premium collegiate apparel with a passion for comfort and a flair for vintage design. Homefield brings you gear that is comfortable and stylish. With over 150 colleges to choose from, Homefield digs deep into the archives, uncovering forgotten logos, iconic mascots, and legendary moments to create one-of-a-kind apparel. Use my code TBTH for 15% off for new customers, or use my link in the description. Back here on the Big Ten Huddle, Zach had a comment earlier that I didn't let him get to because I'm a jerk and I don't let Zach get to his comments.
That's why I hit you in the eye.
It makes sense. It makes sense.
No, I was gonna say. So Moneymaker Boss brought up. Y'all keep on overlooking Rutgers, but it's okay. Don't be crying a river when Rutgers beat y'all team. Listen, tomorrow night we are going live with Larry Crane from Night Watch. We're gonna be talking all about Rutgers. So make sure you join us tomorrow night for that. That's just going to be me with Larry. Larry is one of the most clued in guys in the Rutgers scene. So make sure you pay attention. Watch us tomorrow night, 9:00 Eastern, here on the Big Ten Huddle.
Yeah, this week we've got you covered just about every night. Okay, take Wednesday off, but listen up. Okay, tomorrow night, Larry Crane, Night Watch, Rutgers. Everything going on there. Tuesday night, me and Zach, top 25. We're going to do that for you. Even if nobody watched Juck's top 25, we're still going to do top 25. Maybe nobody will watch it, but we're still going to do it, okay? Wednesday night, you got the night off, okay? Sleep in. Thursday night, me and Jeff won't be here. And then Friday night, Zach, wrestling bracket. Friday night.
Yes.
Friday night, got Dillon, got Kent, got Eric Boggs from the OHIO podcast. We're going to go through our bracket that all of you have helped work on. I'm going to put the link for that in the description one more time if anybody would like to fill out the wrestling rankings. Basically, what we're doing is we are going through, you all are ranking or rating all of the Big Ten head coaches on how good of wrestlers you think they are. And we will put them into a bracket, and then the 5 of us, we have an odd number, so that way there can't be any ties. The 5 of us will go through the bracket and and we will select who the best wrestler out of all the Big Ten head coaches is.
Yeah.
So early
We
favorites:
should.
Luke Fickell, Burt, Sharon Moore, bit of a dark horse with some of the rankings for him. Any others that I'm missing, Zach?
I don't know about that, but I feel like we need to design a specialized Big Ten Huddle championship belt and then send it to the winning coach.
And then they'll wear it on Big Noon Kickoff, because Big Noon Kickoff, we learned, is the most popular show. I did not expect that to blow up as much as it did, man. People hated that we were putting there. That was the only time I've ever seen one of those graphics where it's like, this team plays in this spot, and people are like, no, don't put us there. That was funny. All right. Yeah. Anything else before we get to our power rankings here, Zach?
No, we can go ahead.
Okay. Well, 9:00 tomorrow. Is that when you're doing it, or 8?
9:00.
9:00 Eastern time. Everything. 9:00 Eastern time tomorrow night, Tuesday night, Thursday night, and Friday night. We'll be here then. All right, Zach. Our Big Ten power rankings. I am on the left side here. Zach is on the right side. So if you're listening on podcast, my Big Ten power rankings go Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon, Illinois, Indiana, Washington, Michigan, USC, Nebraska, Minnesota, Rutgers. Who said I wasn't on Rutgers side? I got him 11th. All right. Michigan State, Iowa, UCLA, Northwestern, Wisconsin, Maryland, and Purdue. Zach, why don't you read yours off for the podcast listeners?
Yeah, I've got Penn State, Ohio State, Illinois, Oregon, Michigan, Indiana, USC, Washington, Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota, Rutgers, Michigan State, UCLA, Wisconsin, Maryland, Northwestern, and Purdue. And to all those in the chat, tell us how dumb we are.
Well, you have become Illinois' biggest, Illinois fans, like their biggest advocate at this point. You have them up at number 3. I had them at 4, and I was like, okay, I put them over Indiana. I'm going to get some flack from Indiana fans, and I get it. But boy, someone asks, sorry, I don't know how to say your name.
Dienza.
I'm just going to call you ZZR. ZZR asks, why so high on the Huskies? I mean, I've kind of alluded to this, and I do have concerns about the offensive line. But my concerns aren't that the offensive linemen aren't good. It's just that they're not experienced. So can Jedd Fisch get this together? Jedd Fisch put Arizona together in 2 or 3 years there. They really showed sparks their second year. And then I believe it was his third year when he really put things together there. I feel like Washington had a good foundation to work with of players. Everybody was just really inexperienced last year. And then you had Will Rogers, that he was a good quarterback, but I just think Damon Williams is another special kind of guy who can really do a lot for your offense. And in addition to that, you have Jonah Coleman, who I think he is kind of a sleeper star running back in the Big Ten. Denzel Boston I really like as well. And then on defense, I think they have a good depth at defensive line. I don't think they have any stars on that defensive line. I think that's kind of where the issue lies for me most of all. But I think they have good depth there. Ryan Walters, like, as much as people want to give him flack for what he did at Purdue, I have the same stance with Ryan Walters that I do with Matt Patricia, which is just because it didn't work as a head coach doesn't mean it's not going to work as a defensive coordinator. I mean, it worked at Illinois as a defensive coordinator. So, maybe. And Steve Belichick didn't have a bad defense last year for Washington. They were one of the best secondaries in the Big Ten. Now, they didn't play a whole lot of good passing teams, but still, they had really good numbers last year. So I just think Washington has a lot of work with here. And I realize going into the Big Ten, your question mark being your offensive line is obviously not a good place to be. But I think they got a lot of star power on that team. So I'm a little higher on Washington than most.
Yeah, and I think you hit a lot of the key things, which I would hit, which is they have playmakers on offense. I think Damon Williams is going to be an improvement over Will Rogers. I think he got some good experience a year ago. And his mobility does alleviate some of the offensive line issues. That's the biggest concern, though, is if the offensive line can elevate, I think Washington could be a 10-win team. I think they could be a playoff team.
Oh yeah, I had them early on as a dark horse for a playoff team. Yeah.
Yeah. I think people need to understand that. And if you look at what they were a year ago, I think the reason why we gave them so much flack is because we saw that they had talent, but it felt like they were mismanaged often. So, like the Washington State game should have been a win. It was a loss because they were mismanaged. The Rutgers game, it was mismanaged. Um, those are two games that, you're talking about maybe 8-5. And, even Louisville, the bowl game, so if they lost those three games by a combined 9 points. So if you change that, that's a 9-4 team instead of a 6-7 team. I think the way that they're constructed and who they're bringing back, the way Jed Fish has recruited and been in the transfer portal, I think they are going to be improved from a year ago.
Mm-hmm. Let's just get to comments here because we have so many people commenting. We appreciate you all. AJ says my question for both of you is, why so high on Penn State? I don't see QB being much without Tyler Warren. Fair. We did comment on Drew Aller and how things need to improve with his downfield passing game. Sometimes it looks like he would telegraph his throws a little bit before the line of scrimmage. I tend to believe another year under Andy Kotelnicki will help with that. However, I would also not argue too much if somebody wanted to say they don't have Penn State top 3 or top 2 because of Drew Aller. Like, Drew Aller is getting a lot of hype, and I know there's some people that don't believe in that. I just think he's going to continue to improve. He's going to get better. And I don't think you have Andy Kotelnicki as your offensive coordinator and you don't get better. I'm not saying he's going to turn into an NFL talent, but I think things are going to get better. Zach, you have them number 1. You want to let people know why you have Penn State number 1?
Yeah, I think Tyler Warren, was schemed open quite a bit. So I don't think that means that he's, irrelevant. He was, great player. I thought he deserved Heisman consideration the way that he played a year ago. But I think a big part of the reason why he produced so much was because he was schemed open by Kotelnicki. Kotelnicki's good enough, I think, to scheme other guys open, including their newest wide receiver, Trevor Pena. I think the biggest thing for me, and this is, I think, how I tended to slant my thoughts with power rankings, is I value returning production over maybe future potential. So Penn State's bringing the most guys back. They have playmakers everywhere on offense and defense.
Illinois has the most guys back.
Well, yeah, Illinois, but I think the most impact players back.
Okay, yeah,
I would say. Okay. And the most aside, but that's part of the reason why I have Illinois third. And I think this is my argument, is at least at this point, there's a lot of unproven pieces at Ohio State, Oregon, and Michigan. You don't have that with Penn State.
Which you still have all of them top 5, so you're not.
I do.
Yeah.
Well, there are some pieces that are proven, and the pieces that aren't proven necessarily, I still trust more than like USC. Indiana has, as good as we think Mendoza is going to be at Indiana, I still there's still question marks there for me. But I think if there's in a sense like a draw to me, I'm going to lean returning production, at least to start, at least in preseason. This is the thing about power rankings, though. They're fluid. So we're just saying right now, as we're going into the season, this is how we'd rate them. After week 1, we're going to see these teams play, and we're going to completely jumble them up.
Yeah, totally. Sorry, I just saw a funny comment that I look forward to putting on the screen here.
Oh, dear. Oh, dear. Why am I scared?
Well, it is about you. So,
yeah.
Philip says, I think one of Oregon or Ohio State has a down year, yet still 8-9 wins, but down by their standard. Yeah, I don't think Ohio State and Oregon are gonna be. I say two teams at the top. Ohio State finished 4th in the Big Ten last year, so I can't really say that. But I still, when people saw Ohio State and Oregon play in the playoffs, there were a lot of people saying that's a national championship game. So that's what I mean by the two teams at the top, not by the actual standings.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you're right, Philip. I think Penn State's going to be up there at the top. Would not be surprised at all if Illinois or Indiana are up there. I wouldn't be surprised if Michigan is up there either. I have them low at 7th, but that doesn't mean I don't think they can win the Big Ten. That's one of the biggest things that is most exciting to me about the Big Ten this season. I think 1 through 7 maybe 8, maybe, yeah, sure. I'll go 1 through 8. I think 1 through 8 all has a path to win the Big Ten this season.
Yep.
Obviously varying likelihood between all of them, but I think all of 1 through 8 has a path to win the Big Ten this season. So, any comments on that before I go to the next one, Zach?
No, well, and I think we talked about this pre-show, but for both of us, 1 through 8, we have the same teams. It's just different order. But I think you're right that, and I would argue that I think the top 4 are a tier in themselves right now, and then I think 5 through 8. But I think the gap is more narrow than people probably want to admit between 1 through 4 and 5 through 8.
Yeah, yeah. Dave's here. Thanks for being here, Dave. Says you are out of your mind if you think Indiana and Washington over Michigan on talent alone. Seems like a little Ohio dude creeping in. Man, little Ohio dude. Jeez, Dave's man. Um, all I would say, Dave, is the two teams beat Michigan last year, and Michigan doesn't have 3 first-round picks on their team anymore. So, I mean, call me a hater. That's fine. But I think Bryce Underwood's going to be fantastic. I just think as a true freshman, it's going to be hard for him,
Yeah.
Going into the season, especially with those first 2 road games. Now, that might make him better, for his career, or it could also really hurt his confidence. So, I just think when you have a true freshman starting a quarterback, that's kind of a tough thing to run through all season long. And then
Yeah.
in addition to that, like I said, they don't have the surefire first round picks.
Yeah.
To me, they underachieved last year. I don't think that's a hot take. Like, I've been saying this, and people look at me weird. Like, when you got 3 first round picks on your team, you should not finish the regular season with 7 wins. Albeit you beat Ohio State. Great job, right? Like, that was fantastic. But you also lost to Indiana, who had less draft picks than you had first round picks. Indiana had less draft picks than Michigan had first round picks. To me, it all goes down to Sherrone Moore. Can Sherrone Moore improve as a coach, and can he make him, the team better and run the team better this next year? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I guess somebody else tell me if I'm being biased, and I probably am a little biased. But I don't think it's a crazy take to say without the first round draft picks on the team, I have some questions about Michigan.
I think, and this is probably where we differ a little bit, but I think like my rationale for Michigan being 5th is that I do think Underwood is an upgrade at quarterback, despite the fact, people will say what they want about the spring game. He is absolutely, from a talent perspective, an upgraded quarterback.
Yeah, definitely an upgraded talent. Yeah.
But for me, where I'm basing my ranking on was seeing their revamped defense against Alabama and just seeing like Jalen Milroe couldn't do anything. And I know Milroe's not the greatest quarterback. I still can't believe he went, 3rd round? And was he 3rd or 2nd round in the NFL draft? I think he was 3rd round.
Yeah, 3rd round.
Which was probably the right place for him to go with his athleticism. But that defense, without their defensive tackles, without Will Johnson, they shut down that Alabama offense, despite the fact that their defense was on the field the entire game because their offense couldn't move the ball. Their defense still shut them down. They shut down, I think that matters to me. And I saw them produce without their top overall picks. So I think I see that and I'm like, yeah, their defense is going to be really good. And I think that might help them as their offense gets up to speed.
Yeah. All right, let's keep going through here. Got a lot of good comments, and I want to try to get to as many as we can. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate the comment. PSU Jim says, "What do you guys think of Trevor Pena will do for Penn State? Could that finally open up the passing? The RBs are great, but year after year, the wide receivers have been bad." Yeah, to me, it all just hinges on Drew Aller and how he utilizes the wide receivers. I don't think this season anybody can use the excuse of, and I'm not saying it's an excuse. It's been true. The wide receivers have not been up to par for Penn State. I know we're our Penn State guy. I don't think they're quite as bad as some people say, but they're still not great. They're still not good.
Yeah.
But to me, it all hinges on Drew Aller because Drew Aller does check down to the running backs and kind of check down to his tight ends too much when he could throw the ball down the field, in my opinion. Now, do I think he needs to do that? No, because Penn State has a really good defense, and oftentimes you can win by just not turning the ball over. So I do think there is a good, I do think it's a good idea to not be turning the ball over a lot, obviously, but still, like you have to open it up a little bit more, and you can't just check down your receivers. You can't go
Yeah.
an entire college football playoff game without completing a single pass to your wide receivers. And yes, that was on the wide receivers. I was also on Drew Aller though.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Agreed.
but I think Trevor Pena will be a fantastic addition out of the slot. If he's not in the slot, Devontae Ross will be in the slot and he'll be on the outside. I think it just solidifies that there's no excuse for bad receivers anymore, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
This is the best collection of receivers that they've had since since they had Jahan Dotson and
Yeah, that's what I was
Parker
gonna say. Jahan
Washington.
Dotson in Washington. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. PK says not surprised Zach had IU as low as 6. Zach, you're such an IU hater.
Listen, you have what, fifth? I'm sixth.
Yeah, but you're outside the top 5. I can say I have him top 5. You can't.
Listen. I'm just gonna go full heel now. Indiana stinks. I think they're awful. I should have put them at 15th. They're
Well,
so bad. No, I can't do that. That's not true. I don't actually.
Terry would disagree with you. Terry can't wait until IU beats Illinois by 30 and stomps this BS narrative.
I do think.
I love the confidence, Terry. I love the confidence.
If I can just give Terry and the Indiana fans a little dose of reality, I think I think Indiana can beat Illinois. No question. You have to understand that Indiana had a very easy schedule last year. And
but do you think they're a better team this year than they were last year? Like more talented. I wouldn't say better team because you have to take chemistry into it. We haven't seen them play together yet.
Definitely.
But do you think they're a more talented team this year than they were last year?
Yes. I don't know if it's like significantly better, but definitely there is more talent on the team. Like Mendoza, if he plays well, is could arguably be a top 3 round pick for sure, which Curtis Rourke was not going to be. Yeah, and I think they've upgraded their offensive line. So I don't, but I think you still have to, like, I think I saw someone said in the chat, like, they have 3 All-Americans coming back. It's like, yes. And like D'Angelo Pons, I think he was one of them. Was he one of them? Oh, Kamara was another one, right?
Yeah.
And which is great, but you have to remember that sometimes All-Americans is more about production than it is talent. And if that production is being done against not great players or not great competition, it's a little bit of I can't think of it's a little bit of fool's gold. And I'm not saying they're bad players. I'm just saying there are things that people need to understand about Indiana, that they have a tougher schedule this year, and that's going to be a factor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. I'm skipping ahead a little bit. I'll get back to the starred comments, but Joe did say Work played with a whole season with a torn ACL. If that's true, that's one of my big points on why Indiana is probably better this next year than they were last year, because it doesn't matter how talented you are with your arm and Curtis Work. If you're playing with a torn ACL, you're automatically at a disadvantage from how good you normally are. Philip asks, who replaces Abdul Carter? Denied in Sutton.
They were talking about the North Carolina linebacker, if they get him. Did they end up landing him, the North Carolina linebacker?
I haven't seen anything. I'll check really fast. Amari Campbell. I apologize. I said it wrong. Yeah, I said it wrong on the podcast. Just get used to that if you're a new listener. Sorry, I say all the names wrong. I apologize.
Yeah. A lot of people think Campbell could be that guy.
Yeah. He is not committed anywhere yet.
Okay.
So he's the number 2 linebacker in the transfer portal, according to On3. There was recently an article written with him in it. I'm not going to give away everything that it says, but as far as him, it's says Penn State still seems like the top target,
Yeah.
but he's visiting SMU. No brainer. You'd go to Penn State over SMU.
Yeah. Okay. I need to take an exception to a comment here.
Okay.
Can I do that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, AJ. I'm okay with getting called out that I don't know
That's
know
the worst
everyone.
insult you could ever give.
But to call me Paul Finebomb, I should quit. Like I should just quit the show. This is like to get compared to that guy. Oh, what are we doing?
You have way more hair. Way more hair.
Thank you.
I'm interested to see if any of those guys are All-Americans, though. For Mendoza will not be an All-American. That's not happening. And maybe at the end of the season he will be, but not a preseason All-American. I will be interested to see if any of those other three guys will be national All-Americans or next time. Yeah.
I know you're having fun. I just felt like I had to call it out. So.
Mike says Nebraska and Washington are ranked too high, while Minnesota and Iowa are too low, in my opinion. Both teams could be a lot more dynamic this year offensively, and the defense should be rock solid as well. Okay, so I'm with you, Mike. I had a really hard time with Minnesota, Nebraska, Iowa, and who's the other one you said? Washington. I am pretty high on Washington, so
yeah.
Sure. But you have them right there. You have Washington, Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota right there, all jumbled up for you, Zach. I will say, I guess, for me, and then I'll let you take it from here. Quarterback, for me, I'm not trying to say Drake Lindsey won't be good. He's just young, right? Mm-hmm. And he obviously did very well in high school, put up really good stats. He's got a big, big body. Like the guy has a good arm. Like he's gonna be good for Minnesota. It's not so much if, it's when, in my opinion. Is it going to be this year, his first year starting, or is he gonna take some time to develop and it's gonna be next year? That's the question for me. And then also, you're gonna have some more staff continuity and stuff like that, trying to get in because they did lose a number of guys. They lost their defensive coordinator to Miami. And so for me, like, I think Minnesota has a good chance of being top half of the Big Ten. That's kind of why I have them just like right there in the middle, because I don't really know.
Yeah.
And we'll see. Call me an Iowa hater. I've been talking about this since after the season ended. Iowa, to me, and it's a lot of it is the same thing with Michigan, so I'm not just doing this with Michigan. Iowa brought back all of these dudes on defense. Jay Higgins, Nick Jackson, like they brought back Sebastian Castro, like they brought back all these dudes on defense. And what did they do? They underperformed. They lost to UCLA and Michigan State. Losing to Ohio State, I get that. Like, I'm not going to hold that against them. But they lost to those teams. Kirk Ferentz couldn't figure out his quarterback situation. Yes, they have Mark Gronowski now, but Mark Gronowski also didn't do anything in spring. So, like, I think he's good. But at the same time, we're not going to really know until we get into it. So, I don't know. Like, I don't have a ton of confidence right now in Iowa. And I'll say it again, like, and I feel bad every time I say it because I'm not trying to go at Iowa fans, but like, I think Kirk Ferentz really benefited from the Big Ten West and the type of football that was played in the Big Ten West. I'm not trying to say it was bad football. I loved watching the Big Ten West, but it was a brand of football that Iowa knew best and Iowa was able to dominate with in a lot of scenarios. Not every scenario, obviously, but in a lot of scenarios, they were able to do that very well because that is oftentimes their brand of football. I don't think it works as well for him in this new age Big Ten. And Mark Gronowski is a big piece to try and help them move on from that. But is it going to happen? Like, I can't say I was going to have a dynamic offense until I see it. Last year, Caleb Johnson was dynamic. I don't think the Iowa offense was dynamic. I think Caleb Johnson was. Jazz Patterson could be dynamic for him again. But again, like I do with Ohio State's defensive line and like I do with Michigan's defense, like, I don't think it's just easy to have a guy step in and be just as good as a great player was for your team. Like, I think that's insulting to the guy. And so I think it's insulting to Caleb Johnson when I see Iowa fans say, yeah, Jazz Patterson's going to be just as good. Like, he was good last year, but Caleb Johnson's a whole nother animal. What do you think, Zach?
Yeah, I felt like Iowa and Minnesota were actually the hardest teams to rank for me. And actually, as I'm thinking about it more, I'm actually kicking myself for putting Iowa as high as I did, because I actually think, and I know this goes completely against what Alibaba is saying. But I'll be honest, Iowa loses a ton. I'm concerned about the lack of defensive development. Like if you look at the NFL draft this past year and all the guys we thought would get drafted off that defense, they didn't get drafted. And that's concerning. Like that's the biggest concern to me is you could always count on Iowa's defense. And this past year they underperformed dramatically. And then I think the draft results showed that. So I am concerned about Iowa. I think with Minnesota, I think the difficulty that I have is I think there is a lot of potential, but they lost a lot on every level of the defense. And it was a defense that was pretty darn good last year. Like they lost Jaw Joyner, they lost Justin Wally. They lost, I forget the linebacker who they lost, but they lost key guys on every level of the defense. And you're also replacing Max Brosmer at quarterback. And so there's just uncertainty there. And while they have a real defensive playmaker in Coy Parrish, you have the offensive playmaker in Darius Taylor. You also lose a big time receiver in Daniel Jackson, who should have been drafted. I can't believe he wasn't drafted. So dumb that he wasn't drafted. He's such a good receiver. But that to me is what causes concern for Minnesota. But I think as we're talking this out, I would probably move Minnesota to 10th like you, and I'd probably drop Iowa. I don't know if I'd drop them below Michigan State, but I might put them 12th.
Yeah, Michigan State above them was a bit of a hot take. I will fully admit to that, but I don't think Rutgers is a hot take. Rutgers, Athan Kaliak-Manis, third year, even though like I know Minnesota fans are not a fan of Athan Kaliak-Manis at all, and I get it, but that team last year, they had all those injuries. They still won 7 games. Like, and I know it was an easy schedule, but still, like, I I think there were aspects of Rutgers last year that was impressive, and I think they can build off it and be healthy this year. I think he could be really good for him.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to Larry about that because there were sky high expectations, and then you had all those injuries. It's like, how do you actually digest that? As how did the fan base digest it? How did the program digest it? How should we interpret it? So,
right.
Yeah.
All right, gotta get through some of these a little bit quicker. We're hitting nearly an hour and a half. Leon says looking forward to USC proving the haters wrong. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't know when it's gonna be for USC. Maybe this year, could be next year, could be 3 years from now. But I don't think it's if. I think it's when USC gets good again. I think it's gonna happen. Maybe this year, maybe next year. We'll see. Mike says, I'm telling you that PJ sounds confident, which tends to be a good sign. He does sound very confident. I listened to him on that podcast in the North, whatever it's called, Doug's podcast.
Kings of the North.
Kings of the North. The Kings always messes me up. I don't get the Kings thing. What do you think about PJ sounding confident, Zach?
I mean, do you think he drank some Sprite?
He's got the antidote of confidence, that's for sure. I love it. He's got it. Yeah, I'd be feeling confident if I was drinking that Sprite too. The Penn State guy, greetings from Miami Airport, waiting to board. Hey, Penn State guy, we appreciate you being here. Where was he? He was in a different country. I forget where he was, but yeah, glad to see you on your way back, Penn State guy. So, I think that was all the ones I had starred. There were a ton more. Oh, one more. Leon said, is Michigan State really going to be better than Iowa this year? Yeah, I mean, this was a hot take by me. I like Michigan State's receivers. I like Aiden Childs. His arm, I think he improves. I think he gets better. I think last year was a rough year for him. And I don't know, like, I know Jonathan Smith, some people are down on him, but I just don't think you do that at Oregon State. You get them to be a top 15 team. Like, I don't think you do that and you're a bad head coach. So, I don't know. Call me crazy. But they just fired their athletic director. Sounds like things are changing around there. Maybe that's going to be a distraction this year, and it won't help them. And maybe they're just as bad as they were this year, next year. But I think Michigan State could be a bit of a sleeper team. And I say that as putting them 12th on my power rankings. I just mean I don't think they're going to be a bottom 3 team in the Big Ten like a lot of people seem to expect. Well, you don't have them bottom 3. You have them what? Bottom 6?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I have bottom 7, but still, like I would not be surprised at all if Michigan State ends up being 7-5 this year.
Yeah. They do. Their schedule is pretty rough. Like
Yeah,
a lot
it's
of
almost like
toss-up
Wisconsin.
games. It's a
Yeah.
lot of toss-up games for them. So,
But I mean, they beat Iowa last year.
yeah. I'm curious, who do you think in our power rankings, who do you think is the team that could surprise and rise the most throughout the season? Do you think?
That we agree on or that I'm low on?
That we're both low on, but could
That we're
that has the potential to rise.
Minnesota.
Yeah,
Minnesota could be a top 8, top 7. And I'm not just saying that because Mike is here. I genuinely believe that. I just have concerns about the quarterback being his first year. But if PJ can get that right, it would not surprise me at all if they're a top 8, top 7 team in the Big Ten.
yeah.
I mean, team I'm low on, they're not in the bottom half, but it would not, like I said earlier, it would not surprise me at all if Michigan wins the Big Ten this year.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna pick it to happen, but it wouldn't
Yeah.
surprise me. Sharon Moore figures it out.
Yeah.
What about you?
That's a good question. I think UCLA I think could be a surprise team.
That's what other people are saying.
Yeah.
Pitt Snipe Husker and Joe both said Minnesota, UCLA.
Yeah, I mean UCLA has a real chance to be 4-0 going into Penn State.
Yeah. What's UCLA's schedule? I haven't brought it up lately.
Utah, UNLV, New Mexico, and then a bye week, and then at Northwestern. At Northwestern, sneaky.
Yeah.
But like if
Mitch
they
says Washington, but I can't say Washington because I'm top 6.
So. Yeah, I could say Washington. I think I could say Washington. I really do think Washington is a dark horse, not just to get in the playoff, but to win the Big Ten. Like I know we might disagree a little bit on that, but
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Back to UCLA. I didn't mean to go away from that. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Yeah, if they beat Utah first game of the season, I think that's a huge stepping stone for them. I think they get a lot of media coverage for Nico that very first game of the year, and then they could be 4-0 to start the season. Utah at UNLV, New Mexico at Northwestern. I'm not saying that's easy by any means, but it could happen. And then you get Penn State at home.
They get Penn State at home, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Penn State struggled last year at USC. So if the travel gets them again, and I'm not trying to take anything away from USC. USC obviously showed really good signs last year. They just couldn't put it together for complete games.
And Penn State plays at UCLA after they play Oregon.
Oh, sleeper game.
Yeah.
Watch out. They play at Oregon, then at UCLA?
No, they play Oregon at home.
Oh, okay. I thought you said at Oregon. I was like, what?
Sorry.
That is crazy.
Sorry, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be insane.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean UCLA that's just going to be really tough for them. Their last 5 games at Indiana, Nebraska, at Ohio State, Washington, at USC.
Yeah, that might be That's pretty rough. But I mean, they get Nebraska and Washington at home. Like those are winnable games.
Yeah, I mean they're winnable, but still, just like in that stretch there,
it's tough.
It's definitely tough. You don't want your break game between at Ohio State and at USC. You don't want your break game to be Washington.
That's fair.
You don't want your break game between Indiana and Ohio State to be Nebraska. Like, I realize these are not teams that have won the Big Ten recently, but like I said, Washington just went to the national championship 2 years ago.
Yep. Nope, you're right.
All right, Zach. Anything? PK asked if Utah is coming to the Big Ten.
No,
I don't think so.
No.
Happening. Yeah. But if you want to go see a bunch of Utah fans get mad at me, go to the comments of that video because I said we would take BYU over Utah, and they did not like that.
I'll double down on that. We would take BYU over Utah.
Give me the Mormons.
Oh my goodness.
Boy.
People need to understand that Utah does not. Neither team offers anything to the Big Ten. Quite honestly, the Big Ten's too like it is good the way it is, and there's one team that will add to it, and it's Notre Dame, and they're not coming to the Big Ten right now.
I haven't brought up a John comment yet, but that was the perfect one to bring up. Mormons and money greater than Utah. So, thanks, John.
Wow. Wow.
All right. Before we say our goodbyes, Zach is not going to be here next Sunday. He's taking Mother's Day off, so it's also Zach Day. Apparently, we got Mother's Day and Zach Day.
No. Okay. Hold on. I'm gonna be at a conference that has like zero Wi-Fi. I don't want to hear it. Anyway, keep going.
Just mess with you. But I'm gonna start reaching out to somebody to be a co-host tomorrow. If you have anybody that has been a co-host with me before on here that you have enjoyed, whether that's a team person or whether that's somebody that does national stuff like college football with Sam or Jeffrey the Greek, or I mean, I had Juck on Bucks with me for the recruiting show. We can just do a show on the Big Ten, though. It doesn't have to be recruiting. So if there is anybody that I've done a show with before, or just somebody in general that you would like to have on the show, please do comment or put it in the chat here. Sunny is a great option there, Philip. So yeah, put it in the chat or put it in the comments. Yes, Kent, casual Big Ten, but he's doing one with me on Friday, so I don't know if I want to ask him to do one on Sunday night. Maybe the next Sunday.
You should get Dillon.
Yeah, there would be no football talked about.
We love you, DK.
So, but yeah, you guys are putting a lot of names in the chat. I'll write some of those down and start trying to reach out to some people. But yeah, Zach, any final thought? Not Paul Finebomb. Oh, whoops. Not Paul Finebomb. He's not coming up. We're not doing a call-in show. All right. Yes, Philip, I see basketball coach wrestling rankings. We'll do that as well. We'll get that together after we do the football one. No, John, I would pull my hair out if it was Curve Street. All right. Zach, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
This is fun. When we start talking about power rankings and we start talking about top 25s, it means that football's only, 3 months around the corner?
Yeah. Well, we're going to be in the doldrums of 3 months now because we have May, June, where basically nothing happens. And then we'll get into July when Big Ten Media Days happens, which is going to be in Vegas, so I can't go, unfortunately. Big Ten Huddle budget isn't that much. But if you guys want to see more like goofy stuff, like the wrestling rankings and stuff like that, I try to do the stuff that gets the most views. So if you guys like that type of stuff, tune in on Friday, and I'll try to do so. Yeah. All right. Keep putting it in the comments. No, not Gus Johnson. Not Gus Johnson. Bitch. All right, we appreciate everybody being here. Thanks so much for coming in, and we'll see you. Well, Zach will see you tomorrow night. I'll see you Tuesday night. I'll see you Thursday night, and then we'll both see you Friday night.